So I don't know if you guys want to start up. Oh, I guess everyone's out of order. I was gonna say Haley, me, John, Kaylee, Colin, Steven. That's how it's order on my computer.
Perfect. And
Yeah, sounds good.
if you want to call it out too as we go, like who's on deck, who's on, on stage kind of thing, that'd be awesome.
Um, Haley, maybe you answered this. For the first thing, it says I type in your name. It says address. Do I put in my address? Link
So the
your
first and last name, that's your name, your address, and then if you're submitting your story, then you'd have the link. Then it goes the name of the teller,
Thank
then
you.
the overall score. Yeah.
All right, Haley, you can take it away.
Okay. I once heard a story about a boy. We'll call him Joe. And he was both native and gay. And he would always go and stay with his grandparents over the summer. They lived in a very small town. Now, the people of this town hated the fact that Joe was gay. They were not with that gay agenda. And this pissed him off because they were obviously homophobic, time and time again, tying the pride flag up in knots. And so after he dealt with his shit, he went to go wash his feet off. When there, found the most beautiful boy he had ever seen in his entire life. Blonde hair, blue eyes, slightly tanned skin because he just came back from the beach. And the guy makes his acquaintance, starting off with a joke, introduces himself as like Cameron, and they just say like, "Oh, I'm here for the summer. I'm just here for the long weekend." And Joe is like jaw to the floor in love. And he starts explaining how this was his grandparents' house. They moved after his grandfather was in the war. It was closer to the army base, but they always wanted to be near the beach. But he misses his grandparents so much. The sizzle of his grandmother's tea, like her little songs that would ring in his ears. Cameron's like, you don't seem like the kind of guy that would like be here by his himself. Like you don't seem like that kind of person. And Joe's like, takes full offense. He's like, what's that supposed to mean? Like, I go a lot of places by myself, buddy. Like, fuck off. And Karen's like, oh, I like the snark. I'm gonna take you out. And Joe's like, no, you're not. And he's like, yeah, I am. And he's like, I kind of like the persistence. Okay, I'll go out with you. And so that night they go out at 8:30, right when the sun is bright orange turning to black. And they take this walk, and Cameron's like, I have something to show you. And Joe's like, okay. And Cameron's like, I have this tooth. My ex-boyfriend gave it to me. It's very special. It's supposed to protect me. And Joe's like, this is weird. I don't want this guy to kiss me. I don't want him to talk more about this teeth. I'm just going to give him some head to shut him out. I don't want to deal with this right now. And he fast forwards to the next day. And he wakes up, and there's Cameron standing in his bedroom. He's like, that's weird. How did you get in my house? And Cameron's like, oh, I let myself in. I like picked the lock. I wanted to say good morning to you. And he's like, that's really weird. This makes me violently uncomfortable. Why are you in my house? And Karen's like, well, I'm gonna get some more, and wrestles him against the bed and very violently puts himself in Joe's mouth. Now, Joe didn't push him off and he doesn't know why, but it basically made a flashback to the time that his grandfather tried to teach him how to fight. He didn't want to hurt his grandfather, and so he like fell on his ass. But he picked himself back up. His grandfather didn't hate him or have any disdain, but instead said, lift yourself up, we're gonna go again. Now, we kind of go back to the moment, and Karen's like, you've been good, so I'm gonna show you this collection. And Joe starts texting his buddy because he's like, this is weird, right? Like these teeth, this is kind of weird. His friend's like, I think those are human teeth. He's like, there's no way those are human teeth. Th like maybe some baby teeth. It's like, no, buddy, I'm gonna call my dentist up real quick. Like, those are human teeth. Um, and Cameron gets like super, super pissed that Joe was talking to anybody who wasn't him. He's like, you're my property. You are mine. And because of this, Cameron just slowly starts moving in to Joe's house, which makes Joe a little uncomfortable because he doesn't really like people touching his stuff. But, he only brought the teeth collection. It can't be that bad. Until one day, Cameron starts messing around with his family antiques. Joe is getting pissed because he's not taking this seriously and he threatens to drop one of Joe's Crocs. This is like a big family heirloom, big cultural significance to Joe. So any feelings of mystery, any feelings of passion or lust leave him. And he wants Cameron out of his house now. And so he goes over to try and collect something kind of personal to kind of do the same thing when he looks at his phone. And there are hundreds of messages from his friends, multiple calls, multiple texts saying, "No, buddy, those are human teeth. My dentist confirmed." And he goes, "Oh no." The texts are like, "Get out, get out, get out, get out." And so he takes that box and very calmly walks to the pier in hopes to not draw attention to himself. Now, once he gets right to high tide, he turns around and realizes Cameron is standing right behind him. And he's like, "You read the text, didn't you?" And Cameron's demeanor changed from all those other times that he was rough and almost sinister to pure calm. And he looks at him with something like an animal looking at its prey. "I'm not going to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt you," says Cameron. And Joe starts freaking out at this point, and he remembers everything that his grandfather taught him. So he starts swinging. He hits him with that uppercut, that right hook, left hook, and he's just going to town. He notices that there's a little lump in Cameron's jacket, but he does not mind that because he is just pummeling this man. He is on top of him, just going because he does not want to die. And then something flies out of Cameron's jacket. He doesn't notice or doesn't care until he busts his hand open. And in that moment, he gets off, stands up, takes a breath, looks down at the ground, and realizes that it was a pair of needle nose peelers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a quick question. Does anybody know where to find the grading rubric?
I put it
Yes.
in chat.
Oh, did you? And I just wasn't paying attention. Oh, it's on top. Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah,
maybe
that's
we
the
just take like a
consolidated version.
few minutes to fill out the thing here.
Yeah. All right. Are y'all good, or do you guys need a couple more minutes?
Just like one more minute and it should
Okay.
be done.
I'm gonna start. Holly, are you going next?
Yeah.
Okay.
You going to sit on my lap? We good to go?
Yep.
Hmm. All right, you're gonna want on. So I read a story called Wingless, and it's by Marcy R. Rendon. And in this story, it starts how it ends, and that is with a character named Punk sitting on a picnic table with the narrator who's 2 years younger than him. And in this scene, Punk is taking off Fly's wings, and then the narrator is very mesmerized by this because he does it so delicately that the flies are still living. And then he takes the flies and he puts it in a jar. And as she's watching this, she notices how excited Punk is by like this act of ripping Fly's wings off. And she like sees he's like grinning and his eyes get like big and black. And she's like, okay, guy, like feel free. And you find out that Punk has crickets hidden in his bedroom and he has hair like underneath a drawer. And it progressed to uh describing where they live. And this is on a farm and it's mid-July and it's really hot. And the narrator, uh, her room is in the attic and there's no air and it's very stagnant. And Punk sleeps on the porch where it's like always cold. And Punk's chores are outside. So he's so tan that his skin is almost blue, while the narrator, all their chores are inside. And it's a very normal morning where she is making breakfast for the whole family. And as she's like cracking an egg, it breaks the yolk. So the foster mother slaps her on the back of the head. And it's very nonchalant and almost normal. Like, yeah, she just got thumped on the back of the head and she didn't wash all the grease off the plate. So she just got smacked in the face with like a wet rag. And that's like getting off easy. And the narrator tells the story about how there are times where she's hiding under the kitchen table from the foster mom who would very regularly grab like the largest item next to them and beat Punk and the narrator. So Punk hides underneath the table and is telling this story about how the foster mom has an iron skillet and is like demanding them to get out from underneath the table. And Punk walks in and sees this happening. So Punk kind of makes fun of the foster mom is like, "What are you doing, you fat cow?" And like kind of laughs. And he has the same smile that he had when he was like pulling off the wings of the fly. Um, So the foster mom turns her attention to Punk and chases him out the door with like a fire, like a iron skillet, and like is trying to hit him. And Punk's just like laughing, making fun of her, basically like running circles around her until she falls over and she's like breathing, and then Punk skips away laughing at her. Well, that night, while the narrator is up in the attic in her bedroom, she hears a couple thumps and she doesn't know what it is, but she just doesn't feel good about it. And she doesn't see Punk for 2 or 3 days. And most of the time, that would be like alarming. You're like, oh, I haven't seen my brother in a hot minute. But it's so normal that these things happen. So she just knows that something bad has happened. And then finally, Punk comes from wherever, won't tell the narrator what happened, but he's very like bruised up, can't lift his arm. And then after that, they don't really talk. Like the whole house is just kind of like that weird passive aggressive. No one's addressing the situation. So it's very like, can you pass the gravy? Can you do this? But no one's talking. So obviously they're a very holy family. So they go to church because like duh. And as they go to church, Punk is really singing like as loud as he possibly can. And the foster mom notices that kids in the back are like laughing, that people are like kind of snickering. So she leans over her husband and like grabs the Punk's knee and like squeezes it, telling him to stop. And he doesn't stop. He's like singing as loud as he can. And then the sermon starts. So she just like flicks him on the nose like a dog, like, you're in trouble. And in this moment, the narrator sees Punk pull out this thing from his coat, and it's a voodoo doll. And she notices that the voodoo doll has that hair that was in his room and that is wearing the foster mom's like clothes. And he just like starts stabbing this doll while they're all at church. Very normal. Very, very normal. So they get home. And they all know that Punk is going to get in trouble for what he did at church. So his punishment was that he couldn't eat. They're like, sorry, you're bad. You're not eating for a week. And while this is happening, the narrator is like bringing food to Punk at night. And she's like, can you please say you're sorry so you're not starving to death? And he was like, I'm not going to say sorry. So this happens for about a week. And then he starts to eat and they have their next chore, and their chore was they're getting taught how to decapitate the chickens and defeather them. So as this is happening, uh the narrator really describes about how disturbing it is. They're like chopping off this chicken's head. Blood is squirting everywhere and they see it like running around. So then Punk grabs the chicken, finds this like decapitated, running around chicken, and the foster mom grabs it by its feet, dunks it in a boiling vat of hot water, pulls it out, and they're like, it is gross, it smells bad, I'm gonna throw up. Punk naturally makes fun of his stepmom, so she like throws him on the ground. Um, or no, she pulls her hand out from the chicken after like pulling the guts out, and her hand's like gross. Karate chops him in the throat. So he falls to the ground. She starts hitting him. And then that is when the foster dad's like, hey, don't do that to him, takes him to the house. And then for some reason, the narrator sees the axe that the foster mom is using to decapitate these chickens. And while the foster's mom's hand is like ripping out these guts of the chicken, she takes the cleaver and like just chops off the foster mom's hand while it's in the chicken. And then foster mom starts screaming. Punk comes out, and then it cuts back to the very beginning of the story of them sitting at the picnic table, her watching Punk pull off the fly's wings, and then the ambulances come. Uh, the neighbors are watching. And then the narrator is escorted into the police car, and the last time she sees her brother Punk, he just gives her a thumbs up, and then she drives away. And that is the story of Wingless. So I guess we only have 9 minutes left. So I have to stop this. Like when it stops, it'll run out. Um, and then my computer's gonna make it load the whatever the recording I just did. So I can't immediately start a new meeting and record it. So we have like a little intermission because it might take like 15 minutes to load it.
Cool.
Um, but
So
then
maybe we just
Are
start
you,
that now, all right, and
yeah,
we can hop off. All
but I
right,
have
no
but
problem.
Holly,
huh?
are you using the Zoom through the CSU
I
or
think
you're
I,
using your personal?
yeah.
Okay, if you log in through your CSU, you won't have a time cap.
I did not know that. I didn't even know we had a Zoom through CSU.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Never mind.
No, no, I can try to figure out. But what
Nope.
I,
Yeah.
Whatever's fastest.
um,
We can also post the new one in the announcement tab for us, just so we still have a way of getting back to it.
what new one? Oh, yeah. But I have a question. We can only re submit one thing, but we're gonna have more recording than one.
We can edit it.
Okay.
Yeah, that wouldn't be too hard to splice them together. Also another thing through the CSU, if you download the Adobe Suite and you sign in with your Chico login, you literally have every Adobe program, Photoshop, all the editing software, Illustrator, all that stuff.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna do that. Where do I find, I'm so sorry that I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And I didn't know that we had a CSU. Where do I find the Zoom on the CSU in the portal, or where would I find that?
Let me see. So when you log in to your portal, as soon as you like actually get in, you get the list that's under My Portal. You'll have the Chico State Alerts, Canvas, Student Center, Google Drive, Microsoft 365. Zoom should be in the very top right corner of the screen.
Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry, guys.
Oh no, you're good.
You're all good.
Join
But
in.
I know some people mention that they do have time constraints. But once we start the next call, is there anybody who like absolutely had to leave at some point? Because I remember somebody mentioning something about like, oh, we got to do it at this time because I got something.
I have work at 11, but it's all good. Like I
Okay,
have plenty of time. Yeah.
cool.
So if I, because when I record, oh,
Oh yeah. It says
you.
There we
recording
go.
now. Okay. Sweet. I think we're all good to go.
All right, and who's up? Is it me or someone else? Okay, so I'll be retelling a story by Rebecca Roanhorse called White Hills. This is a story about a woman's gilded cage, a place that she dreamed of spending the rest of her life, even if that dream became a nightmare. Marissa felt that she had achieved the unachievable. She found herself in a veritable paradise. She was living it up with her new husband, Andrew. Her home in the White Hills had amenities she could never even think to ask for: a homeowners association, a private pool, a country club where her husband spends his weekends, and a close proximity to her in-laws, Andrew's parents. The place to her was like a dream come true. She felt very accomplished for being there. She felt accomplished for her toned and tucked body, worked on by professional surgeons, her bleached blonde hair. She felt accomplished for her outstanding social media influencing career. She grew up very poor outside of Chillicothe, Texas. Four siblings to a queen-size bed and bedroom of two, owned by her Meemaw. On fateful day, though, Marissa sat out to find her husband, Andrew. He said that he would be at a bar, not to wait up. She had something important to share with him. A fear that, it's maybe a dream that wouldn't be shared. But Marissa knew that she was pregnant. She sought out her husband, Andrew, searching for him throughout the country club, finding him in an all-males club in the bar. Nothing but waitresses wearing short skirts, football on every television, and stiff drinks being served to all the old men inside. She approached Andrew rather cautiously at first, and was shocked to see his disdain upon her arrival in his place. Shortly after, though, she was welcomed into the fold and was just excited to be able to watch men being men, according to her. They were watching a football game, and throughout the discussion among the men at the table and at the bar, an argument sparked about Indian mascots. To which one man says, this team went downhill from all this social justice bullshit. Marissa would say, well, I don't really follow sports, but I'm part Native American, and those teams never embarrassed or upset me. She immediately realized her mistake. All eyes were on her in the room, and she felt the discomfort, not only from her and from everyone else, but from her husband, who quickly tried to shuttle her out. And before she could even say anything, she was tripping over her heels, falling to the ground, and let out a gasp, "The baby!" spilling the beans about the big secret she wanted to tell her husband about in front of everybody in the bar. He was even more embarrassed, and they rushed home. Very little words were exchanged between the two of them, till finally her husband Andrew, in bed, rolled over, groaned in frustration, and said, why did you mention your Indian heritage? I didn't know. You said you were French. To which Marissa says, I'm part French and part Indian. Later, she receives a text from Andrew's mother, her in-law, saying, congratulations on the baby. We'll have to meet for brunch, and we'll have to go see a specialist tomorrow. Marissa is excited at first, but come the next day, her in-law, Elaine, is there at her house early before Marissa can prep any. No coffee, no brunch, no food. Elaine's dressed to a T and using her presence in a rather intimidating manner. Marissa is completely unprepared and scrambles to get ready as she's being yanked around her house, and eventually drove away and sent to a specialist. Elena and Marissa say very little to each other, exchanging few words. Even once they reach the specialist, Marissa goes in and is seen by a nurse alone initially. And after having her mouth swabbed and a couple of checkups, as well as a blood draw, Elaine would return shortly after, entering the room where Marissa is alone with a smoothie. Elaine would tell Marissa, you have to drink this. It's for the baby. Marissa was terrified, but drank the smoothie anyway. Their conversation continues, and quickly after, Elaine reveals her true nature, saying, I can't believe it's true, but I won't be having a part Native American grandchild. Who knows how dark and savage that child might be. Marissa is horrified as Elaine goes to gripe on about ancestor roles and blood quantum rules that Marissa has no clue about. She begins to feel pain inside. Heavy bleeding starts, and when she wakes up, her baby is gone. Marissa was forced to abort her child, slipped poison in a smoothie. But despite all of this, Marissa still cares about Andrew and Elaine. Marissa still cares about her position, her dream, the White Hills, her home. Shortly after, a night with Andrew, and the next day, Elaine is back at the house. Marissa wants to impress her, wants to do anything to show that she's worthy, to prove that she's worthy of respect, to prove that she's more than a half Indian, more than what Elaine says she is, a savage. But no amount of brunch, coffee, preparation, finery, nice clothes, and nice food, it would be enough. Elaine goes on to say, there's a matter of that little bit of Indian blood, and I think one of your fingers will do. You know, we all say we're part something, but which part? The left? The right? I think a pinky should do. Cut it off and we'll call it purged. Marissa laughed. Elaine did not. Elaine says, I'm offering you a way out if that's what you want. But this house, the clothes on your back, it all comes at a cost. You don't simply roll in here with your mixed race blood and think that you deserve this. Marissa's torn between her past and her present. She slides off her ring as if she's ready to walk away from all of it. She clutches it in her other hand, grabs the knife, and chooses her home in White Hills over Chilco. Thank you. What, Stan?
Is everyone done filling out the Google form? Does Kaylee want to go next?
Sure. Thank you. Let me just pull up my notes.
No problem.
All right, is everyone, can I start? Good. All right, my story is Hunger. And the story starts out talking about a creature called Watigo, which is a spirit that is insatiably hungry, that has existed since the beginning of time. That always is just in the background, watching, waiting, thriving on emptiness, disconnection, feeding on people who have lost their sense of self, people that have lost their sense of community. The Watigo is a force that is tied to the land and people. And as traditions were erased through colonization, the spirit grew stronger. In the story, it talks about this creature and also themes of survival, resilience, and especially this one person named Summer and her ability to confront something so ancient and so powerful. The Watigo is described as being a physical being, but as time has gone on, it has become something less tangible. Um, it whispers in the minds of victims. It preys on arrogance, selfishness, fear. As the connection between their people and their land was severed, the Watigo found new strength in the emptiness that was left behind. It was feeding on not just individuals, but just the spirit of disconnection that has been fostered through generations. In this particular instance that the story is going into, the spirit, the Watigo, is kind of preying on these people that they refer to as empty people. So, in the story, it's kind of specifically talking about college age, party, frats type, you know, young men who are just kind of vulnerable. They're arrogant, they're selfish, and the Watigo is preying on them specifically because they don't have like a deep connection to um, meaningful things or to themselves. They're kind of just a little more on the shallow side. As this spirit takes on one specific young man, he's attending a party, and the young man and the Watigo notice someone very specific coming into a party. This is Summer, who is a young indigenous woman who is attending a party. She comes into the party, she's feeling out of place, but she's staying, she's making the round, she's saying hi, but something does not feel right. She notices it right away. But Watigo also notices her right away. She has a presence. She's vibrant. She's connected to herself. She's connected to her culture. She's connected to her ancestors and her sense of self. The Watigo can clock that. And it starts fixating on her. It craves something substantial. Um, and so it starts kind of stalking her as she moves through the party. As the party is winding down, Summer decides to leave. The Watigo, now fully inhabiting the man, follows her, whispers to her, stalking her, trying to instill fear in her, planning to attack her, thinking that it has the upper hand in this situation. Summer is aware of its presence, though, unbeknownst to the man being possessed. She doesn't run, she doesn't panic. She walks calmly through a dark park, which is a bold move, but she has a plan. As they go into the park, the Watigo closes in, confident that it will overpower her. But Summer is prepared. She has her purse, which contains all kinds of things, as most women's purses do. She has a stick, which is great. She also has cedar, sage, tobacco, um, and a friend. A friend named Rain joins her. And they kind of like take the Watigo off guard. She likes the stage. She pulls stuff out of her purse. All of these things are helping her draw strength from her ancestors. And again, the Watigo is caught off guard. It begins to weaken. It's coughing. It doesn't like the smoke from the lit stage. It is unable to withstand the power from the sacred medicine and also summer and rain determination. Eventually, the Witigo is forced to leave the body of the man that he has possessed. The Witigo scatters into the night, retreating to the stars, weakened but not destroyed. The man wakes up in the circle that Summer and her friend have created. It's confused, or he's confused. He's disoriented. He has no idea what has just happened. He has no memory, and he's not really here to hear from Summer or her friend. And they just decide to leave it. They knew that they did the best that they could, and they're not gonna sit here and try to make him understand something that he obviously does not have the comprehension to fully grasp. In the end of the story, although the Watigo does retreat, again, it's not gone. It is still out there, waiting for its next opportunity to feed on those who are hollow and disconnected. Summer's story, though, is about the power of resilience and strength. She didn't just survive the encounter, she stood firm, she thrived during the encounter. She used her knowledge and the power of her ancestors. The story is a reminder of the importance of staying connected to one's roots, one's culture, and one's community, especially in the face of forces that seek to take those connections away. All right, thank you.
All right. Who else wants to go? Steven, do you want to go?
You want me to go?
Either or, you or me.
I don't mind going next. So I had had Quantum as my story. I did change the names because like I don't know, like to me I didn't like the names, but like so yeah. So it starts off with Ray Beams as she pulls out the certificate as both two certificates actually for her both her children Edward and Charles. And Zane, her husband tells him like, "Hey, I told you like this would happen, man." Like, and then what's her name? Oh yeah, it's Ray. Tells him or tells him that there were like surprises and there were any mistakes. As Zane told her like, Charles was a mistake, as much as Edward. And then Ray tells her like, my mom told me to like marry, like a white man, a white rich or a rich white man, to get me out of where I was at. And Zane tells her, what are you gonna do with me then? And then she tells him to shut up, Zane. And then she tells herself, how do I get them in the tribal role? How do I get Charles in there since Ed is already in there? Zane tells her, easy, easy, you don't. It's impossible. You can't do that. And she tells herself, like, you know what this means? Like, it means Charles is gonna be pissed off on his 21st birthday. Like Ed will have more opportunities than Charles won't. And ironic is what I meant, as Zane laughs himself, kind of, as Ray scolds him that it wasn't funny, but it's usually like the firstborn benefits the most, you know. And then I would say like weeks or like the next day or a week come by, the checks came by and more would come, then Ed's trust funds arrived as well, and his money already earning that good old interest, but can't get that on his 21st. And then she Ray tells Edward that it's his it's his money, you're gonna get them on your 21st, my little Indian or something like that. And then Zane they hear Zane's truck pulling up and the door slamming, and they tells both Daddy's home. And then Zane comes out bursting to the door and tells Ray Big Al's dead. And she tells him, no, he's not. You're lying. As she thinks that Big Al's like has been like like this immortal being, like has he been ancient when she was born. As she thought she'll be alive forever, but as what she unfortunately not. As Zane tells her that word's getting around, over at the Huckleberry, and she tells him, "What are you doing over there?" "I'm just having a drink with the boys, Tell them I'll be back." And she tells him, "Don't spend it all on booze." And Dean tells her, "Are you my mother? I'm a grown ass man in my 20s. I'm just can I not have a drink with the boys? We haven't seen each other in like in like months, please." And then she tells her that what's gonna happen to him? What's gonna happen to Big Al? He's gone. And, like it's gonna be weird without him. Yeah. And Zane tells her, "Yeah, I'll just be home. I'm gonna be home late. See ya." And the funeral comes by, and the family went to go see him for the last time. Actually, Ray is the one that go sees Big Al. Now she tells Zane to take Edward to see the have the elders see him. And as she kind of did smile a bit as she hears all the ahs and all the happy reactions, let's just say. She goes to Al's coffin as she tells her, as she whispers in her ear, and then she looks at the back of Al's hand, the biggest, longest blue vein that he had. As she got into her purse and she like finds this syringe as she wants to like stick it into his hand, stick the needle into his hand, but then this dude come out of nowhere, tells her, "I don't think you should be doing that, miss." As actually wants to like take his blood out of his hand, as but the guy told her, it's gone. We took all the blood out because we want to preserve the body. It's just a common practice we do. And then she tells us like, what do you guys do with it? We dispose it. Like you guys throw it out? What are you gonna do with the blood? Yeah, of course we're gonna throw it away. What are you gonna do with the blood? I just thought that Big Al was more Indian than the rest of us. I suppose that the blood was blood that made him that way. And then Uh, and in the night, Ray lie down next to Zane in the dark. Zane tells her, "You look good, Big Al. You look good." As Ray thought about the funeral director and the empty syringe, she tells Zane, "What are we really?" And she tells him, like, "What do you mean? Is it our blood that makes us who we are?" A long, quiet pause of silence as Zane tells her, "I don't know, man. It's just some weird philosophy shit that people think of. But, who do we know? What do we know?" And that's the end.
All right. I believe I'm last, and that's it after this. Whenever you guys are ready, I'm also ready. Okay.
So like 30 seconds, I'll submit this one, get the
Yep.
next one ready to
No
go.
problem. No problem. Take your time.
I think I put in the wrong email for the last thing, but it's fun.
I noticed that there's a submission email. Like I was submitting under a different Google account for the first two, but I was typing in my email. So
Yeah.
hopefully, like, yeah, maybe that's why he doubles up. So that way you can be like, okay, I'm
Well,
sure some people use these.
apparently I have been doing this under the wrong email the entire time,
We're
but
doing it
this is
with
the
our
last one, so I might as well keep going with it.
Yeah, and as long as you're putting in your Chico email address under the fill in the email address thing, that's
Yeah, because like when I was, sorry, I'm setting things up. Um, when I was doing the last one, when I say that I fucked up, it's because I spelled the last part of the Chico email wrong, but the first part's the same, and he'll probably get it.
yeah. He gets to look at all these, so he'll pick it up quick.
Because I think it was that thing when you type really fast, and so CSU Chico and like the last couple letters of Chico all go in the wrong order, and you're like, well, oh well.
I think I've been doing it wrong this whole time then. I've been typing where it says email address with the little star asterisk. I've been putting
Mhm.
my email address. Do I put his email address?
No,
No, no,
your
no,
your
no.
email
Go
address,
Okay, well
email.
then never
yours.
mind.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just the
what we're
Chico
talking
one.
about is whether or not like we're using a Gmail on accident or using the
Okay,
CSU Chico
great. Well, you guys just terrified me and I was like, oh.
address. Speaking of scary stories, here's one right now. You got to do it all over again. I'm ready when you are.
Okay. So my story was Coach Chuka, but I changed like the names of everything because it's like I don't know. I just wanted to change the names of it. All right. So I'm here. I'm gonna start. All right. You ever hear a story that you brush off as like an old myth, only to find yourself questioning everything when you're in the moment? Well, that's what happened to Eli when him and his uncle went camping deep in the Alaskan wilderness. So Eli had grown up hearing stories about the Oteka, which are creatures or part otter, part human. I don't know, all kinds of trouble. They could shapeshift and mimic voices, luring people into the woods. Some said they were tricksters, while others swore they were dangerous. Eli, like many young people, they were just tales to scare kids and keep them from wandering off. But his Uncle Ben, he took these stories very, very seriously. As they hiked, Ben started talking about the Oteka. Not like they were legends, but like they were real. They were terrifying. He told Eli about a friend of his who vanished after hearing a baby's cries in the woods. The friend thought he was saving a lost child. Turns out it wasn't a baby. It was an Oteka. That was the last anyone ever saw of him. Eli rolled his eyes, but Ben just chuckled. Laugh all you want, he said. But I don't forget. They know how to find you when you're at your most vulnerable point. So that night, they set up camp. The fire was warm, the stars were bright. But the woods, it felt like somewhat alive. So Eli started noticing little things, like a rustle in the trees, faint whistles in the distance, like almost as if someone's trying to like grab his attention. Uncle, did you hear that? Eli asked. Ben shrugged. Probably just the wind, he said. But Eli caught him gripping his knife. The next day, Eli decided to explore on his own, venturing further from camp than he probably should have. That's when he heard it. Someone calling his name. It was soft at first, but it grew louder. Eli! Eli! The voice was familiar, and his heart stopped when he realized it was his mom, or at least what he thought sounded like his mom. So now, Eli's mom had passed a few years ago, and the thought of hearing her voice sent chills down his spine. But the grief has a way of messing with the judgment, and Eli found himself following the sound. The deeper he went into the woods, the louder the voices became. The longer he stared, the more wrong it felt. He saw this shape, this figure of what it looked to be like his mom. But her movements were way too stiff, her smile way too big, way too fake to be her mom. Eli froze, his instincts screaming and telling him to run, but his feet wouldn't move. And then her form began to shift. Her features melted into something else, something sharp with teeth, wild eyes, something totally out of the ordinary. It wasn't his mom. It was an Oteka. Just as the creature lunged, Ben became crashing through the trees, shouting in their language. The words were strong, commanding, and the creature shrieked, a loud sound that sent every hair on Eli's body straight up. It bolted into the woods, disappearing like smoke, but Eli headed back to camp. Ben didn't scold Eli. Instead, he sat him down and said, "The Oteka aren't just stories, Eli. They're warnings. They find the cracks in your heart, your grief, your curiosity, and they pull you in. Our ancestors told these stories to protect us, to remind us to stay sharp and to respect the land and the spirits in it." Eli didn't say much after that. He didn't need to. The experience had left him shaken, but it also left him with a deeper respect for those old stories. They weren't just myths. They were lessons about survival, about staying grounded, and about never underestimating the unknown. From that day on, whenever Eli found himself out in the wilderness, he made sure to keep one eye on the stories of his people, both eyes on the shadow in the trees. Thank you.
Colin, I have a question for you. I guess I can do it not on, do you do like Switch or something like recording? You have a really good audio setup.
It's just because this mic.
Oh, well,
Yeah. So I have my camera on my phone and
mhm.
it because my desktop doesn't have a webcam.
Okay, well, I was just curious. Um, my I'm looking for a voiceover guy for this Instagram account called Contemporary 100 if you want to look into it. Uh, there's a British guy doing it right now and it's getting like everyone hates the British accent, but you have like a nice setup and I like the way your voice sounds. So I was gonna like talk to the person in charge and then like, is that weird? I was just like listening. I was like, ooh, this guy would be good.
Yeah, Colin's
No.
good. You can also ask just about anyone in the recording art department because we have like 100 microphones.
Yeah. Anyway, we can probably stop recording. I'm so sorry.